Greetings, fellow human.
What's up, or how you be today, by the way?
I be not bad.
Good, good, good,
Had
good.
the day off. It was a wellness day. Get one of those company wide a month.
Is it a coincidence that it coincides with Good Friday?
Hmm, maybe they might have picked that. If they can line it up with an existing holiday, hey. But it's always like on a Friday. So we took the Munchkin down to Jumpity Bumpity, but they got slides and like
Okay,
a ball pit and all that sort of stuff. So tuckered the kid out so he could hand him off to my parents so we could go and watch the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
that's funny. I've been to many of those jumpy things. They had one that was in Cordelia, one in Fairfield, one in Concord. They used to have Jump Highway, all those things. So those are good alternatives to run your kid,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, run to
burn that
sleep.
energy out of him.
Yeah.
Dana
So,
can't wait for him to get trampoline sized and then take him to trampoline places because when she was nannying, that was like her go-to thing for running kids down.
okay. So she knows all the tricks already.
Oh yeah.
So, question. So, did you want to talk about this episode as a standalone because it was really kind of a standalone in a way, or it was just so many things that went on with it needed to be discussed?
I think there's enough issues with it. And like, as we'll get into, it's really the payoff at the end of the episode that doesn't pay off.
Mm,
That's really my issue. I know there's other people that have issues with sort of the side quest. It's like two-thirds, if not more, of this episode.
right.
And I am that's not my biggest quibble. Like, it's definitely sort of the payoff at the end. But because of that lack of payoff, that puts into question the validity of spending all that time on the side quest. So
Mm.
we should probably get into it.
Okay. Well, let's do it then. Let's count it off. Five, four, three, two. All right, we're back again for another one, and tonight I have with me.
An old man, an old man, ready to talk about nerdy Star Wars shit.
Okay, I'm
Also
here.
known as Ryan. Yes, hi.
Jedi extraordinaire. Disgruntled customer?
Uh,
Possibly.
I was like thinking of like I was underwhelmed. I wasn't overwhelmed. No one's ever whelmed. Like,
Why isn't anyone ever just whelmed?
I have more issues with this episode than I did the issues with the first episode.
Very interesting. Okay, let me say this. Episode 6 of season 3,
Mhm.
chapter 22, Guns for Hire. And this one's directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, which
Oh, okay.
which kind of explains why for such a interesting story it was more than competent as far as the direction of it. The direction of
Absolutely.
it was beautiful, the look
Absolutely.
of it was beautiful, the designs of the characters, the flow of the story was beautiful.
The action scenes, all
Yes,
the action
yes,
scenes were great.
the,
Everything looked great.
right,
Like the sort of tempo of
right.
everything.
So it
It
was
was
just,
very competently directed.
yes it
It's
was, it was
this
just a
this
story.
my issues with the writing. My issues with the writing. She did a bang up job, just like she did with her episode in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and it starts off good. I liked the intro where it's the guns for hire and we get to find out what happened to her crew and Moff Gideon's ship, and like it was fun and interesting. It starts off with like a Quarren ship. Those are the derogatorily called squid head
Hmm.
aliens.
Hmm.
Um, they're actually from the same planet as Admiral Akbar, the Mon Calamari. They actually come from the same water planet.
Oh,
And
okay.
there's reference in there of like the sort of civil war between the two, and da
Yeah.
da da, and like we're gonna have peace. And of course, the captain's boyfriend is a Mon Calamari, and it's this whole like star-crossed lovers, and it's great. They got a whole thing where like the captain starts sort of the scene in the bridge where she's in a little aquarium, like
Right.
hydrating, and
Right.
like
They're
the
feeding her
crew's
fish.
they're feeding her fish. The crew are coming up and talking to her, and she's like, "Oh crap, we got company." And then sort of the aquarium sinks down to the floor, and she's left sitting on her chair.
Beautiful.
It's dope. It
Hmm.
was dope. I
Beautiful.
I loved it. And then I don't know the character's name, but basically Bo-Katan's former second in command shows up in Moff Gideon's ship, is like, "Hey, by the way, you need to surrender because we're taking your boyfriend back. Like, sorry, nothing personal. Just we've been hired to take it back. He's like royalty or some stuff."
Right.
And they're like,
right.
we don't have him. He's like, yeah, stop lying. We're coming in. Like, we're gonna take your boyfriend, and you get to decide: are we walking in or are we shooting our way in? Because honestly, don't care. And I was like,
Right.
oh, okay, direct.
Right. And I loved how the thing came up with, why would I do that? We don't want war. We're trying to get along with the people. And he's like, oh, I know you did it for love.
Yeah, he just
But,
cuts right through.
but
Like,
it's
oh
not,
no, yeah,
yeah, I know you did it for love, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's not my problem.
Yeah.
I have to retrieve him, and whatever happens after that point, that's on you. And so I thought that was very interesting. I also like the detail of when the ship came up to them, they were trying to figure out what was going on with it. First they was trying to start off with a bribe and, trying to sweet talk them and all this other kind of stuff. And they're like, we can't
Oh,
be
the
bribed.
glorious empire.
Exactly.
Try to
It's like,
flatter them.
So I thought that was really cool. And I also liked how they kind of discussed between themselves, like, can we take this ship?
And they're like, no.
Before anything, can we take him? We can't take him. Oh hell! How are you today?
Hi.
Yeah, so I like that part.
This episode, to give it credit, like, it does a lot of world building. Like,
Yes, it
it
does.
really does a lot of interesting world building. I think some people still have some of the issue with the droid stuff, which we can get to. But like on that level, like, yeah, it added a lot of stuff. Like, it showed sort of other aspects of what's going on. We're again getting more information about the New Republic and stuff like that. But
Right.
yeah, so her old crew is just straight up mercenaries now. And then I think what it cuts from them to Bo-Katan and Din
Yeah.
coming down to a planet, right?
Yeah, it's like they tracked the Mandalorians down.
And this
I
is
think
the planet that they're now working for, I guess, or something.
Right, where they're basically gun for hire.
Because as we find out, they're not allowed to have a standing military. So they can
Yes.
have mercenaries?
Right. Right. I guess when you don't have certain things, you make good with what you have. But it's just the politics of all of this stuff, though. It's a lot of politicking, and it's interesting to see how folks are.
Well,
are
a weird
maneuvering.
sort of like overlap here of sort of like weird rules in play, because like we're
Yeah.
gonna get into like who can have the dark saber.
Mhm.
It is also like, oh well, we can't have a military, so we're just gonna pay mercenaries as a loophole, but then they can't come in the city. So now that you two showed up, we're gonna have you come into the city and solve our droid problem, and you don't really have a choice. It was very odd, because when they land, it's like, oh, okay, weird, Imperial droids. Okay, we get in their hyperloop. I think they
Right.
straight up called it a hyperloop, and it's like,
Right.
yeah, no, you can't go and talk to your friends. You've been requested to come to and talk to the princess and the
Yeah.
leadership, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, they
Great.
basically snatched them from the parking lot. But it was funny
Yeah.
to me the way they, when they got to the planet and the music started kicking in. I'm like, it's
also
like they
took control of their ship.
exactly. It looked like they had got hijacked by Disneyland or Epcot Center or something. It looked
Well,
very.
For a minute, I was like, it's a domed city. I'm like, is this another Mandalorian city?
Right.
No, it's not. It's a totally different thing. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And even when they sat down, my brain was like, why does Bo-Katan have her jetpack and Din doesn't?
Mm.
And I don't know if there was a solid reason for that. Like, the only thing is, like, at a certain point in a chase that they have later, she has her jetpack and she uses it to like leapfrog and try and catch the target. That's it. I don't know why they took his off. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's a small weird thing that I just tracked, and I was wondering why the difference. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. So they were.
yeah. This next scene is a lot. I was not ready for either of these cameos. Or I should say guest starring roles. It wasn't really a cameo. It was bigger than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So they get pulled into the leadership, and they step into like a midday lunch or something like that with a long table and a whole bunch of fancy looking aliens and stuff, and down at the end, before we even get like a mid shot, like way off in the distance, I'm like, skadoosh, that is Jack Black.
Straight up.
Straight up, like I could see the hair, the big beard. I'm like, that is Jack Black.
Mm-hmm.
And
damn near looking straight into the camera.
this
You know,
long
they're at the
lunch table.
Yeah, they're at the end of the table, kind of looking towards the camera. So it's almost like, you know how Jack Black is looking. So he
right, and then we find out the princess seated next to him with a giant flower hologram following her around the whole time. Check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Is Lizzo.
Right.
And I want to be clear. I don't have any problem with the casting on this. Like, I don't care. A lot of people that are hot and pissed off that Lizzo, she can't act, and it's like, dude, whatever. Like, I'll blame the writer and the director first. Like,
yeah, I would have blamed her if it wasn't for another cameo that comes up later. But even Jack Black seemed like he was off his game. I think they were just having fun. And please don't have fun during my show. Do that somewhere else.
I think this is really people's issue with it, is that as much as The Mandalorian is a lighter tone show than certainly Andor,
yes,
it was just almost cartoonish.
Yeah.
In tone of just like did we switch tone to like, this is straight up 100% like a kids show, because the way that they were talking and they were emoting was so da 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 and da 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 and do do do, and it's like, is this, I forgot, I was gonna go back and like rewatch the scene, because I was like, how much of this is like they're putting on an affectation in front of sort of their friends or these other people in the place, and that's just sort of their style, because there is a scene where they take them aside and they're like, no, we have a real problem. And I kind of vaguely recall that the tone changed a little bit, but not a lot. So it wasn't like we're putting on, you know, a facade, a formal facade, and we can drop it now because we're sort of in private on the balcony. No, really, this is a problem. But it was pretty consistent, and I think people just didn't like those characterizations, because it really does stand out. And the whole situation is kind of a lot to unpack too, because it's like, okay, Jack Black's also a former Imperial. You see the little like, I'm a reformed Imperial badge on his ridiculous outfit.
Yeah, and she mentions it as well, and that's why they can't have the army and can't have, you know, can't have weapons and stuff like that.
And it's just because of him, and it sounds like he basically squirreled away a whole bunch of resources under the Empire's nose to build this place.
Yeah.
And the Republic basically let him keep it. And the only reason the army's an issue is because he got elected as like co-leader with Lizzo, who's a princess.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that is...
But, you know,
convoluted, like
convoluted, but I could believe something like that happening, because if they needed it back or needed a resource, they have that already there and built up, and they didn't have to spend any time on it at all, but they could commandeer it whenever they need it.
Right.
If need be. Not to say that the show is taking that far out, but I'm just saying.
It's not so unbelievable. It's just like, oh, okay, well,
At least it had the decency to make this a whole world upon itself in a way.
Yes.
So they're not coming across anything else that we're dealing with and being like this. So at least they're in their own environment.
And it definitely felt distinct too. And like the issue that they're dealing with was interesting. It was like, is this a commentary on like the direction the Republic's going, and this is maybe one of the issues or weaknesses that they have, that they're over relying on droids, right? Basically everyone that lives there doesn't have to work, right? They have whatever they need, great, nice little utopia, but the underbelly of that is like, it's all built on droid labor.
Yeah, I liked how that was brought up, but then I felt that that would have been a stronger through line than what they kind of mixed that into.
When they get to
Went
the droid
down.
bar.
Yeah. All right. So the issue that they were having basically was the fact that they had malfunctioning droids. To me,
Aggressively malfunctioning.
yes, and to me, it kind of reminded me of iRobot.
Detective, what are you doing?
Well, you said they've all been programmed with the 3 laws, so that means we have 1,000 robots that will not try to protect themselves if it violates a direct order from a human. And I'm betting one who will.
Detective, put your gun down.
These things are just lights and clockwork.
Are you crazy?
Maybe I am.
You know, when Will Smith had to, there's a problem with the droids hurting humans, which is really not in their, prime directives, and he's going around trying to figure out what's causing this problem. And so they're trying to go and find, and they even have like even a first they go visit the chief of security.
Great Scott.
Christopher fucking Lloyd.
I love Christopher Lloyd. I did not care for his acting as this character in this show. To me, it was almost confirmation that it was the director and writer. Now, if it was just Lizzo, then I would have been like, oh, weakest link, this is the problem. But when veteran actor
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Christopher Lloyd, and I'm getting the same vibes from him that I kind of got from her and Jack Black, they all were guilty of it. It's like all the day players are the ones that are just kind of standing out too much, and they are not the ones that are, weird looking faces or, as often as their characters were, they stood out way too much when you had all this other great things with these droids, the designs and the animation and how clean they looked, and these different species that's sitting at the table and they're intermingling with, they are standing out, but for the wrong reasons. And they seem more, like you say, like characters than the actual, characters.
Yeah, and Lloyd's performance for me didn't break down until his last scene, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like it seemed again a weird switch, and I don't know. Well, we'll get to Lloyd's last scene, but
yeah,
I can understand being disappointed with sort of, again, our guest stars, how they were used, how their characters were presented, because it's
and I don't know what's up with the cameos lately, because we just got done dealing with a cameo in a way. And like I said, the way our last cameo was, like I said, even though he stood out, he didn't stand out.
Right. Yeah.
And so,
I mean, his in-character name did, Colonel Turtle.
Right. So he was recognizable, but he didn't, and in this one, it seemed like all the folks who were there, like I said, it's almost like they walked in and kind of did their own thing. And maybe it was pressed for time. Maybe like, hey, we got to get this in one day kind of thing. Let's shoot your part, get this done with. I don't know what it was, but it just felt like it was like a trial run or something. Like, like I said, even Christopher Lloyd, they kind of tripped me out, and they had to deal with him kind of a lot, initially asking, trying to figure out what's going on. He kind of give them slight information. They go further along to try to figure out what's going on, and they're going to
gives them a breadcrumb that they start following.
And so they follow it and meet up with the droids, trying to get more information.
Now, the interesting thing is, once they start, we get to see this sort of dynamic between Din and Bo-Katan of sort of their approach, and I think mostly it's Din's not necessarily impatience, but he just does not like droids. Absolutely does not like droids, because of course droids were the ones, separatist droids, that attacked his village, killed his family, blah blah blah. So you kind of get that interesting play, and they're doing a little bit of good cop bad cop, and Din is doing a great job bad copying these poor droids.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's like the only sort of like, it doesn't tell us anything about the characters outside of that. So it's not, while all these bits of world building are interesting.
Yeah.
Our characters' interaction with that world building, Like it's ironic, like so they go and like they're looking at some separatist droids loading a shipment, and like Din like has this whole thing where like while Bo-Katan's trying to talk to the droid in charge, like Din just starts like kicking droids as they come down, waiting to get one that's pissed off that's going to break its programming, and one does, and then they have a whole chase, and they got to chase down the battle droid. And eventually they get to the Ugnaughts, who are basically the droid repair crew. Like they're the ones that keep all these droids and then presumably the rest of the city working.
Right.
And because I forget the character's name, but Nick Nolte's Ugnaught character from season 1, Din knows how to talk to Ugnaughts, and Bo-Katan does not.
Right.
And so it's this interesting play of like you have the worldly Bo-Katan just like accidentally insulting them by questioning their workmanship and and Din's like, let me smooth this over, and we get to see Din oddly being a little more diplomatic because he's probably just better at like meeting people and like taking sincere their customs and learning them, right? And it works out.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of like, oh yeah, right. Din could do some types of like low level common people diplomacy, right?
And I think that comes with his job and the way he does his job. Because it's like either you come easily or I can hunt you down. And he's probably dealt with so many different kind of things too. Because he doesn't seem like just off the strength like a jerk or anything.
No.
He seems very like he'll try to work it out with you, but he takes no prisoners either. I thought he was kind of heavy-handed with the droids too, but then like I said, it kind of made sense because he had a purpose for doing that. Because he probably knew like, well, if everybody's acting right, of course they're going to act right if nothing's pressing them. And so even though it seemed like, man, that's kind of aggressive, it worked.
Right, shoving
a
shock stick in a droid's
like,
face.
You have to do that. And he was kind of like, well, it shows that I was able to find one that that was malfunctioning.
Right? Because like, if I recall, they go to a droid bar because they find out that the battle droid that they tracked down and that had a chip or something from a droid bar, which is like a droid bar. That was new. And so we get this bar scene that they go into, and like the second they step in, all these droids who are like essentially drinking oil as their alcohol, right? It just goes dead quiet because like, why are non-droids in the droid bar? And they just walk up to the bartender and they start asking him questions, and Din is just like, fuck this, puts a shock stick to the droid's face and is like, stop bullshitting us, tell us what we need to know. And the funniest, it's messed up, but there's a funny bit where like a protocol droid, like a blue colored like C-3PO model, like starts to like try to shuffle towards the door, and Din's just like, no one leaves, and everyone's just like, oh fuck, and the droid just like shuffles away from the door. So it's like there's these funny bits, like, and I mean, it turns out like, okay, well, here's all the droids that like drank the same batch of like oil juice, and we find out it's contaminated, and it immediately contaminates another droid, and like, well, they examine they got nanobots, and the nanobots have chain codes, which basically like moved around.
But it's also used to update them too, so they get updates and things like that.
Yeah, they get updates. But this one's updating them to be malicious, right?
On purpose, yeah.
On purpose. And then we find out, well, whose chain codes? Who brought them in? Like, this is unauthorized. And it's like, it's the security chief. It's Christopher Lloyd's character.
It was me. Yes, I did it.
Yeah. And he's just like, yeah, no, I fucking did it. And then we get the why. Yes. So at least we cut to the chase of just like,
right.
And he's got his hand on a button that's like, I will activate all the other I'll destroy all the droids in the city. Because his whole thing is, we rely too much on droids. It's going to change us and sort of corrupt us. Like, we can't do this.
Right. You would think the button would make all the droids attack humans or the aliens or the people, but no, it was for everything to shut down. And
Yeah.
the truth is, like, what would they? It's almost the same thing with the Matrix. Like, if we didn't have this kind of situation with the robots, and they decided, say we shut them down, then what are we going to do? That's how we breathe. They make the oxygen. They,
Right.
electricity. Everything's automated. So what would happen if they just, just stopped like that? We'd, be dead in the water basically. And so I thought it was very cool and interesting that they, that was the real problem. And then almost even so, more so, the privileged people, accepting the situation. Like, they can't just have leisure. They would have to actually, do work. And I'm not saying it judging, because we are in the same situation basically for some of that.
And oh man, yeah, I want to come back to that because we got to talk more about what one of the droids said in the bar. So Lloyd basically gives his whole I'm doing this because I think it's bad for society that we're all just relying on these droids, right? And he's like a former separatist and da. And so they're like, all right, well, we caught you. We're gonna take you to the princess and to Jack Black. And this is where I had issue with not Lloyd's performance, but just the character went from I am totally convinced that this is the right thing to do. I may not like that it's hurting people, but it's this is an issue.
Right.
And he goes from that conviction talking to Bo-Katan and Din to the princess being I'm so hurt and disappointed that you would do this to us. And he's like, I'm sorry, princess. I hope you can forgive me. And it's
right.
Did you just become a 5-year-old?
I want to earn your trust back and blah, blah, blah.
Right. And it was just dude, make your case. Stand with the thing that you were so set on doing. And he just folded like a deck of cards. And it was what is this?
Yeah, he was like a Scooby-Doo villain. They pulled the mask off and he had all the fight. So the whole show they're fighting and
the thing is, the Scooby-Doo villain would have still said it, and I would have gotten away with it. I'm still on board with doing the thing. I just got caught, right?
But it is kind of they don't, after they're kind of caught, it's kind of done. They have no more fight in them. They just get shuffled off with the police, basically. Yeah. It's but everything else, they have been avoiding them the whole show. And all this back and forth and almost getting, destroying the kids. But when they're caught, no more fight after that. And it's okay, darn. I'll go to my corner. Okay, you got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it seemed like it seemed like the next thing would have happened with him if he said, you got me, and it was done. He would have pushed that button and took himself out.
Right? Just gone
been done.
Fuck it. Boop.
Yep. Here we go.
Go ahead, shoot me.
Bye-bye. I'm going.
I've already done the hard thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the thing with this is the long going issue with sort of Star Wars and droids is that they're all kind of treated like slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Not oh, you're people working for us and we're going to pay you, or just you're a person, right? And so when they're interrogating that bartender, I forget what Din says, but it's something why do you care about these freaking people? And because they gave us a second chance. It sounds like all the droids were captured separatist droids in some capacity, and they're we get a chance at a second chance to serve and to help out. And the weird thing is, he also drops a line of I forget the exact phrasing, but it's basically we get to see so many human lifetimes,
right.
And it's yeah, we outlive you motherfuckers.
Right.
And it's not spiteful. It's
No.
almost a sad thing.
It's the truth. You guys are a drop in a bucket, so it's the least that we could do for you, basically.
Right? It's you made us, and we live longer than almost all of you. So it was very interesting, but it was also very weird of just we thank the people that made us as slave labor and are giving us an opportunity to keep working as slaves. And I was
And they don't speak for everybody.
Right.
The views of the droids is not the views of African Americans. It's not interchangeable like that. So the views of the droids are not.
Yeah.
It's not the same for descendants of slavery.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of why they. Like I said, it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, and you know, another interesting thing that I like that they did is, you know, and I've been watching more of the Bad Batch. I know sad things are coming at the end of season 2, but um, you get to see former clone troopers interacting with separatist citizens,
Mhm.
right? And they're like, dude, we were fighting for like independence and freedom, da 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 da, like all these other things. It wasn't, we're not the bad guys you think we are.
Mhm.
Like, it's complicated. Like, Dooku was an asshole. He stripped our whole planet of resources. Like, and then it was like, fuck that guy. And so for the security chief, Christopher Lloyd's character, he's like, I was a separatist. This is about fighting for freedom, right? And this is a weird cage. I don't know if that was exact phrasing, but just like getting like, oh, right. There was the separatist versus the Republic War. Then there was the Galactic Civil War with the, like, there's history there as opposed to just like, oh, well, we're just going to move on to the next thing. So I like that little bit of like, oh, we're dealing with the remnants of the Empire, but there's also remnants of the separatists as well here and there. So
Right.
yeah. And then they're like, yeah, thank you. And Grogu gets to hang out with the princess, and they're like, okay, cool. Now you
He
can go
gets
talk to your.
knighted.
He gets knighted, which was like, all right.
And then
I honestly was like, okay, sure.
yeah. And then Bo-Katan, she got the key to the city.
Yeah, great. It was like, was this like an 80s cartoon episode? Like, it felt 80s kids cartoon episode. And I did not like the tone. But aside from just the tone with those characters, primarily Jack Black and Lizzo's character, all the rest of the side quest, there could have been more. I'd like to think there could have been more done with Din and Bo-Katan as like good cop, bad cop, as like having them talk about things that are important to them. And I felt like that just wasn't there. It was mostly like them figuring out how to be good cop, bad cop with each other.
Right.
So
it's off as the story kind of was for me in certain points. I think I could safely say if those 3 special guests were replaced with actors we did not know and played at a different tone, it would have been a better episode.
Yeah. And you know, it might have just been one of those things where either they were written that way to be that tone, or maybe Jack Black just sort of like did his Jack Black wiggle and just like.
Yeah, they wasn't really asked to be a character. They seemed like they were kind of being themselves in a way, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's not, with all that, it is not the thing that has been on my mind since I watched this Wednesday.
Is it what we're about to talk about next?
Yeah. It's it's the last 5 minutes. I checked the time code. It's only the last 5 minutes out of like, I think 30-40 minutes or something like that.
Okay, so after they leave the leadership, they trek out to have a conversation and meet up with the Mandalorians, the ones that are for hire. Bo-Katan's
old crew.
I think she mentioned before that the leader was her brother, or was she saying it as in brother as in Mandalorians, or her actual brother? I remember
think
her
brother
saying
is
brother.
in Mandalorians.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
They're
parked outside the city.
Yeah,
and they got
meeting up.
a couple ships. And the interesting thing too is like I tracked it when they had this nice sort of splash shot, and you can see very clearly Gideon's stolen cruiser.
Right.
And then you can see other ships that are the fighter craft like Bo-Katan has. But then the other thing is they have the stolen Gozanti cruiser that they picked up in season 2. Where Bo-Katan and Din met up on like that water sort of wharfside planet, and they first sort of like bonked heads, and then they stole that. That's the same cruiser.
Okay.
So my players have stolen one of those in my Star Wars campaign, so I am familiar with it. Yeah, I mean, it looks cool. It's like there's all the stuff and the people that used to follow her, and it's laid out very clear, like. Because you didn't take the damn Darksaber. And this starts to get into my issue with how the rest of this goes.
I figured it would. A challenge was brought up, the challenge of leadership.
Yeah. She's basically just like, hey, I challenge, what is it? Axe Woves. Need to throw in an L there, and then it's Axe Wolves. Dope ass name otherwise.
Yeah.
And he's the leader, and we got like, how was it? She doesn't have any lines this time. Saka Reeves. And she's like the other one with the hair braids. Like
Yeah.
She's a WWE
Yeah, she
wrestler and
wrestler or
stuff.
something like that.
Yeah. Too bad she didn't get anything. She'll probably have more episodes, whatever. But it's pretty much between Bo-Katan and Axe. And it's pretty much just like, you weren't willing to take the Darksaber. And it's...
Right, because I thought it was interesting because he was like, you should be him you're challenging. You shouldn't be challenging me. You should be challenging him.
Yes.
Because he has the Darksaber.
He has the Darksaber. Because it's like, the whole thing is like, if you're not willing to step up...
Right.
Then why should we follow you? Which is like, as that's presented, it's like, yeah. So then she's like, well, fuck it, I'm taking back the crew. You're all gonna work for me now. And he's like, yeah, that sounds like a challenge. He's like, yep, I'm challenging you. Challenge you for leadership. And then they have an otherwise kick-ass fight. I like the fight. It was good.
Fight. It was a good.
It's good. I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. Like I was like on board for like, that's the step that she's at, right? Goes through it, and then she finally sort of like gets the one up on him, has him pinned, has a knife to his throat, and it's pretty much like, go ahead and finish it. So it's like the expectation is like, this is to the death, which I hate to say it kind of should be. Okay. If you're in a sort of society that like goes by whoever is the strongest and whoever wins is in charge, you don't beat someone and leave them alive because they come back and stab you in the back later, right? You have to remove the challenges to your leadership. Doesn't matter if you're the one that got challenged, you're the one doing the challenging, you kill the other person so they can't come back and challenge you again. But she kind of does the Paul Atreides thing. It's like, I don't want to kill. I don't want to. God, I was trying to like look the exact words, but it's like she doesn't want to kill any of the Mandalorians, right?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I can buy that with Bo-Katan's background of like being part of the fucking Civil War and fighting and killing other Mandalorians. I can see how that's a big thing of like and to her speech right after that, because it leads into her speech of like, Mandalorians are stronger together, right? It's like, we shouldn't be fighting each other. I'm not gonna kill him. Like, that's not her way. She doesn't put it in that words, and she does a pretty decent this is how I'm gonna lead speech, right? It's okay, it works. And then we get into the problem where Axe gets up and he's basically like, but he has the fucking Darksaber, right? Which is the core issue now. And Din's just like, well, we can solve that. And he's like, I can just give it to you. And she's like, no, you can't. And he's like, oh yeah? And he walks over to them and is like, hey, so we were on Mandalore. I got my ass handed to me. This guy beat me. She beat him. That means she beat the person that beat me. So that would mean she earned the Darksaber, right? Yeah. And he's just kind of like
technicality.
Right, on a technicality, a weird technicality. And it's sort of like, this gives you the excuse, right? He's looking to her people, not to her. He's looking to her people of like, that would mean I could just hand this to her and it would be legit because she beat the guy that beat me, right?
Right,
it's
right.
Like, that's like the letter of the law and not the spirit of the law. And I would imagine this is all about the spirit of the law. And this,
because I kind of asked this earlier on about, can he just give it to her? And you're like, no, she gotta.
The thing is, the sad thing is like, so he passes it to her, and everyone seems cool with it, and it has this otherwise great like hero low shot with a camera coming up towards her on the
Mhm.
ground, and she like holds the dark saber out to her side, and she looks up and she ignites it, and the music's swelling, and
Right.
everything tells us like fuck yeah, and it's like no, you just let her to laud it instead of spirit of the laud it. Like you had this whole thing where it's like, well, wait, if she was going to like if it's just to like, well, we gotta trick her people into like being okay with this, like I just got more disappointed in how they resolved this because it felt like
Yeah.
well, Din's not gonna be the Mandalorian, the Mandalore with the dark saber. It should be Bo-Katan, right?
Right.
She is really the protagonist of most of like I could say this whole season.
Yeah.
And it just made the whole thing feel cheap. It made it feel really cheap and unearned. And it's like, if he could have just done this, why didn't he do it sooner? Just give it to her? Why didn't she ask for it and be like, hey, I saved your ass. You got punked. I used the dark saber. I'm really good at it. Here, watch. Whoop, 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 whoop. I look like a goddamn Jedi with this thing. You look like a chump. Like why?
Okay, so as we both know, this happened before with her, getting back into the clan because she was also in the water and she did not remove her helmet. So when it was used then, it was fine. But to go back and do a similar thing again,
So
it's all these technicalities. Like I said, it's reluctant, but it's still these technicalities of.
And the thing is like
Mary suing it a different way, but
that's even back in the Mines of Mandalore, that's the second time she's had the Darksaber, because going back to Clone Wars and I think Rebels, Sabine, who won it in combat, gave it to Bo-Katan, right? Where she's like, I think you should be the one to have this because you are an actual leader, right? She gave it to Bo-Katan, and Bo-Katan like took it, thank you, held it up above her head, ignited it, and a whole bunch of Mandalorians bowed down to her, right? And then they went on to do things, and it turned out horrible, right? She lost the Darksaber. Gideon somehow ends up with it. Da 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 da.
So is that why she's reluctant to just take it and be like, I have to earn it, otherwise it's going to be problems?
I think so.
Okay.
And I think there's two parts to that. I think there's one of like, yeah, I took it in the letter of the law once before, but also I think the way and doing things following the way means a bit more to her now after going through the Mines of Mandalore, right? But then she's just like, oh, sure, letter of the law, okay, I'll take it. And I'm like, ah. Now, if this is one of the things, if like later this turns out to be the flaw that breaks her again, where she did the letter of the law, even though we're not talking about an actual law here, it's like a cultural law, so whatever. But if they're gonna come back and like, you didn't really earn the Darksaber, and that's why she fails, or that's why whatever, I just feeling, yeah, that also feels weak. But like what I wanted and what I've been thinking about is like, you want to give Bo-Katan the Darksaber, and I mean you want Bo-Katan to earn the Darksaber.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of means she's got to fight Din for it. Now, without trying to rewrite the whole episode, I think what could have been done is, I mean, assuming it's a long run time, you trim a little bit here, trim a little bit, you give them, Bo-Katan and Din Djarin, more time from when they come into the episode to them arriving at the Mandalorians to talk about the Darksaber and to talk about why Bo-Katan won't take it, why she won't just allow Din to give it to her, because like you have to set up this whole thing at the end, right? Why she won't just let him give her the Darksaber, right? And it needs to become a character choice, right? Because like there's interesting things with Bo-Katan's background, and even with what she says when she beats Axe Woves, right? Like, I'm not gonna kill any more Mandalorians, right? Like that's great. That seems like it's based in her background of participating in the start of a civil war and fighting other Mandalorians, right? And if you make part of the shit Bo-Katan's working through is that she feels like because of her actions, she weakened Mandalore. And that helped lead to the fall of, you know, to Moff Gideon, right? She sort of cheated her way to the Darksaber, probably didn't think of it in her head, right? And that might be part of why they fell. And so it's like, I want to do things the right way, the letter of the law way. I'm sorry, the spirit of the law. So I'm not gonna let you give that to me, right? And as I lead and with whatever I'm gonna do, it's not gonna be killing other Mandalorians again. Be no more Mandalorian blood on my hands, right? So like when she says the equivalent of that line when she beats Axe Woves, and she's like, yield, and he's like, you're supposed to kill me, and she's like, I'm not killing any Mandalorians. I'm like, that's a thing that I like. If before they get to her Mandalorians, her and Din are just like straight up discussing like, what's it gonna take to get your people back? And it's like, well, I'm gonna have to challenge them, and it's to the death, and I don't want to kill my own people, right? I don't want to kill any Mandalorians, right? And if she can lay out to Din, it's like, I have made all of these mistakes, right? I let ambition and everything else and thinking I'm absolutely the right person to be in charge lead to stupid fucking bloodshed, right? Have it be based in, I fucked up, I've learned lessons, and maybe I shouldn't even be in charge. I'm just going to get all these other Mandalorians together. They're not necessarily going to follow me. I'm just bringing them all together, right? This is my atonement, is I bring people back to Mandalore. Maybe I shouldn't be the leader because I made mistakes. I'm never going to make those mistakes again. And so for Din, this becomes like, well, that sounds like the person I want to follow. Right? The person that is going to bring Mandalorians together, not pit them against each other, not sacrifice Mandalorians. Like, you'll lead the charge. I've seen you lead the charge, right? But she won't let him give her the Darksaber, right? It's like, if I'm going to earn that, I have to earn it the right way. But I don't want to kill you. Like, I don't want to get in a duel and have to kill you. Like, so if you set up that dynamic where this is what she wants, this is why she's not going to take it, and this is how she's going to lead, she's not going to kill Mandalorians again, that gives Din then a reason, after she challenges Axe Woves and beats him, that instead of Din going, hey, here's the Darksaber, you beat the person that beat me, Din goes, yeah, I do have the Darksaber, and that's why I should be in charge, because I'm going to be the Mandalore, right? She's not willing to take it. So I'm going to challenge Bo-Katan here and now for leadership over all of you. And either you bow down and follow my leadership, or you take the Darksaber from me. Right? And because I don't think Bo-Katan would challenge Din. Right? I think she doesn't want to hurt him, doesn't want, to spill Mandalorian blood, and he's just, in my head, he's like, he's the nice guy, like the ideal Mandalorian. Why would she want to kill him, right? He's maybe not the glorious Mandalore, but he's what a Mandalorian should be, right?
Right, because she kind of checked some other people about that before, talking about he's just as Mandalorian as us, and like he doesn't
right?
have our blood. He doesn't share a bloodline. Say
Right?
he did
And
the
the thing
same
is,
thing our ancestors did.
let her say all those things. Let her build him up, and then be like, yeah, and that's why I should be in charge. And now I'm going to challenge you for leadership over all your people, because you're all going to follow me. Because if you're not willing to step up and take the Darksaber, someone else is. And he has to essentially force her to fight him for the Darksaber.
What's interesting, a lot of points you made is a lot of stuff that came up, and she even said, but it was in different points in this journey and to different people. Because she said the thing about how she couldn't just take it, you know, it had to be, you know, the right way, and because it almost seemed like it didn't turn out well because it wasn't done correctly. And then the whole thing about him technically being a Mandalorian, even though it's questioned about where he came from and who he is and all that kind of stuff. And then also her thing about not wanting to shed the blood of Mandalorians because so many has been lost already.
Right.
It just was all just kind of spread out. And so it wasn't, so the things were said, they just wasn't said at this key point.
Now here's the thing. Here's the last part of this. So he challenges her.
Yeah.
She accepts it because, not because she's like, ooh, I can earn it now, but because it's like, you shouldn't be in charge. Like, Din, you're not, like, and that needs to be a conversation earlier. Like, that could be a conversation between them of like, he could be like, dude, you absolutely should be in charge. Like, you've done this, like, forget the fact that you were born a princess. You've led. I've seen you lead. You're good at this. And she's like, yeah, but I've made mistakes. Da da da. And it's like, he's like, I can't lead. Like, I will follow 100%. But like, my whole thing is like, I'm dad to baby Grogu here. Right? I don't have the strategic mindset to lead people. Like, and it needs to be a thing where it's just like, she knows she has to fucking step up and he's forcing her to do it. Now, when they fight, Din knows that he has to sell this. Right? Because it can't look like, hey, we're gonna fight. Boop! Oh, you got me. Here's the Darksaber. Right?
Right.
So he has to 100% commit to actually beating Bo-Katan. So we get an actual drawn-out fight. Now, maybe that means Bo-Katan's fight with Axe Woves earlier is a lot shorter. Cool. But her and Din's fight needs to be more brutal than her and Axe's fight. You get a whole bunch of stuff where it's block, block, dodge, block, block, dodge. A couple, like, we slam into things, get knocked back, right?
Right.
I'm sure they got hurt, but we need things where it's like, they hurt each other. And she needs to disarm him. And thankfully he's got nice Beskar, so he can take a bunch of hits from the Darksaber. Or at least ping, ping, ping. But she needs to actually hurt him, drive him to the ground, and demand that he yield. Right? But he's not going to yield. He can't yield until she doubles down on she's not going to spill Mandalorian blood, and she throws down the Darksaber. He's like, I will not kill you. And then, limping along, he can pick up the Darksaber, offer it up, and says, that's why I yield. And then he can kneel. Right? Because he's showing why he wants her to lead. Because she's not going to turn against other Mandalorians. Right? That's the leader I want to follow. Right? And if you wanted, like I was talking, I don't know, a couple episodes ago, where it's like, well, if Din's ever going to like master the Darksaber, we're going to see this moment where he gets some clarity of focus. And we see in the way he's wielding the Darksaber just changes. It becomes as smooth as Bo-Katan, right? He's not struggling against it anymore. If when he challenges Bo-Katan, he ignites the Darksaber, makes his challenge, and goes from holding it two-handed and struggling to just like just straight up holds it out one-handed towards her as he like makes the last challenge. because he legit is like, I'm gonna prove why either you or I are gonna be leaders, right? Or earn Darksaber, whatever it is, because he's committed to dying if necessary. That he's gonna go all the way, and either she's just gonna outright trounce him,
Mm-hmm.
or she's gonna get him to the point where like she's gonna force him to yield, and he won't yield, so that she will refuse to kill him, and then he can show why she should be in charge, right? You can have all that, right? That feels earned as fuck.
I think they had too many moments together for it to be a situation where he would actually fight her like that. They kind of changed their relationship. If he would have stayed kind of distance but together, kind of like in the beginning,
I
when
know.
he went to go visit her in the first place.
This is the thing. It's like a really bold thing of Din to do.
Yeah.
And that feels really out of character because for the most part, he's mostly reactionary, right?
Right.
He does things that are deep and solemn that affect him and affect Grogu. But like, that is blatantly like, I am going to put on a show and I might fucking die for it. But to help her get where she needs. And you might have a funny scene afterwards where they're both like all patched up because they've beaten the shit out of each other. And it's like, next time you're going to pull some shit like that, Din, let me know ahead of time. Right?
Yeah.
But it is a little stretch for his character, but it still would have been better than just like, well, here you go.
It would have been definitely better. But like I said, they kind of had too much stuff going on between them, and they were kind of using their relationship to grow her. So to use him in that way, when they, which is really the way you're saying is the way they should have used their relationship, but they didn't. It's almost kind of like if he did that same thing with the armorer, that would have made more sense. That would have been like, okay, because they know of each other and they're close, but not close like that. Because it's about rules and culture and all this other kind of stuff. So I'll do it for the culture, even though I personally don't feel this way.
It would have taken, because the thing is, I felt like this should have been a way bigger moment than it was. Right. But that would have required that then they were like, we have to set up why this is a big moment, right? And we probably need to go back more than one episode and start sprinkling in interactions with these two where Din wants her to be the one with Darksaber, and she is not willing to take the easy route. She's willing to do what she needs to do, even without the Darksaber, if it means doing it the right way, right? Following the creed, this is the way. But they didn't set that up, so...
But that's kind of what happened, though. That's kind of what happened. She refused it. She got sent on her mission by the armorer, and she tried to do it without the Darksaber. So that's exactly what...
I know, but
then
happened. He was just like, well, here you go. And it just undercuts this moment of her getting the Darksaber, and it's just like, well...
I hear you. And like I said, to me... It didn't deserve the shot and the music and the score for that. But you know, it's still, regardless, it is the ultimate weapon in the hand of He-Man. Even though Skeletor just gave it to him, it shouldn't have happened like that. But you're still gonna have the theme music when that sword touched hand.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, and then to jam that into this episode, that was almost kind of like, why even this episode? It's like you didn't really have to dedicate all this other stuff, find out the robot and the knighting and the key to the city, when you could have did some of this work earlier in this episode. And you know, it could have been she found them because she tracked them, and they were there doing some work for hire for the leadership and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. But to have all this, you know, chasing down robots and going to the bar and talking and discussing, that could have been done on a different episode, since this is really more tangled. They got their own mess to be dealing with to get untangled versus some other side quest stuff.
Yeah, I just don't know if it was like they're like, we got to have, and I don't even think it's like the lighter tone is like the choice that's like, let's do the side quest so we can have this lighter tone or whatever.
Right.
I just don't know if they felt comfortable delving into sort of like all this internal conflict for Bo-Katan, and then getting Din to be the other person hearing that, so he can be like the one to be like, well, you shouldn't have it, and I'm gonna do the hard way of giving it to you, right? So that we meet the spirit of the law instead of just like the, well, she beat the guy that beat me letter of the law.
Yeah.
Like if you give me a choice between an episode that sets all that up and pays it off versus the droids, dude, give me the setup and the payoff, because
Exactly.
was,
Exactly.
yeah.
Like I said, when I saw it, I'm like, Darksaber as a technicality. I'm like,
Yeah,
like,
right.
like, why? Like, why? And maybe it's like, okay, well, Din's the leader of the show. We don't want to see him defeated or almost defeated. I don't know. It's funky anyway. It's almost like then don't do this setup that way. Then if you don't, if there's certain things you don't want to hit, because if you start down a road, give us the path you've taken us. You can't chicken out. It's kind of like, okay, if you don't want that ending, then you just don't set up that you're going there. Then
Right.
figure out some other kind of way to have some trials and tribulations or whatever, other than setting up a definite one that you're going to avoid at the end.
And you know what? Let me see here. Who wrote this episode? Writers: Jon Favreau. Wait, George Lucas is listed?
Is that explaining everything?
Are you kidding me? Hold on. Let me go back to the previous
And that would
episode.
make sense for a lot of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, no, because the dialogue's not horrid.
No,
So-
it's a story. It's the story. So it was Jon Favreau and George Lucas. So that kind of makes sense.
And it looks like yes.
That smells like George Lucas.
Episode 5, episode 6, George Lucas, Jon Favreau. Episode 4, this is The Foundling, with Ahmed Best. Dave Filoni's added to that list.
Mhm.
And then, wow, George Lucas is listed as a writer. I wonder if he's like just listed on all of these, because I can't imagine he's.
The
I
first
think
time
he's
I've
just
seen him,
because it's like these are all my writer. This is like in perpetuity. My name needs to be a writing credit. I don't know.
I didn't see his name on the other ones. Let's see.
Yeah, he's on every single one from this episode. He's even back in season 2.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, but I doubt he's
Maybe because they don't list him on the actual episode. Maybe this is just IMDb.
maybe.
Because on the episodes I don't never see.
Yeah, they don't put his name up.
Yeah, it's not like a writing team.
But yeah, this is Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni.
Those are only two names I saw like together. But George Lucas I never see on the show. But
Yeah, this was not a.
not a strong one.
Ew.
The Force was not with this one.
Yeah, it's weak, and like I'm looking again at the IMDb ratings, and like so episode 1, which was like 7.5, then episode 2, 8.3, The Convert, which is the doctor side thing, I guess people didn't like, 7.1 again, The Foundling, 7.8, jumps back up, The Pirate, plenty of action, 8.4.
Mm-hmm.
Guns for Hire right now is 6.5. And I don't blame him. Like, at least the first episode, The Apostate, is building stuff up. Ish. Because, like, the Darksaber was, like, the big thing of, like, well, who's going to end up with it? Right? Because it's essentially, like, the scepter of authority for, like, the Mandalore. Right? He doesn't have the crown. So that's the other thing. There's the Darksaber, and then there's the mask of the Mandalore.
Mm-hmm.
And that got lost like centuries ago. Like I think the Jedi had that.
Okay.
But this is the whole thing of like who's gonna lead the Mandalorians? Like, well, whoever's got the fucking Darksaber, and we got this weird rule where like you have to earn it in combat. I'm like, well, yeah, she beat the guy that beat me. And it's just
Yeah.
underwhelmed.
Why isn't anyone ever just whelmed?
Underwhelmed. I wish it was otherwise.
I thought, like I said, the story was a mess, but nicely shot. So it was definitely a lot of like, oh, that looks beautiful. Oh,
and
that's cringy. Oh, that's a good little chase scene.
And for the side quest, like aside from like Jack Black and Lizzo and a little bit of Christopher Lloyd's like last scene, the rest of it worked. The rest of that little side quest, good cop, bad cop, I'm like, okay, works. All right, I'm on board. Fine. But because it takes up so much time out of an episode where I felt like they could have been doing other stuff, I'm like, you should have done more setup.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, I wish it was better. It's still interesting to see what they do with the last two episodes.
Yeah.
Like, are we going to get a big battle? Are we going back to Mandalore? Are they just going to bring him back to where the Children of the Watch are hiding out? Like, we still got the whole thing with the Beskar. It's embedded in the prisoner transport that Gideon escaped from, which I think is an absolute intentional misdirect by Imperial forces. Like, would not be surprised if that's a Thrawn move, where it's just like, well, you know, it'd really be sucky if the Republic and the Mandalorians ever got along again, so let's just make it look like the Mandalorians broke out Gideon, and then that's going to cause trouble between the Mandalorians and the New Republic. Cool. You guys fight each other.
Right.
And it's like, also the Mandalorians are like a scattered people, so I don't know.
I have no guess. Like I said, I'm sure people who straight up hated this episode. I didn't straight up hate it, but I am thrown off by it for sure.
I saw people that were like, yeah, I had fun with the episode. I was like, okay. Yeah.
They said, what about it?
They enjoyed it. Like,
okay.
I know a couple people, like, the bar is low, right? And not like, they're not slow, they're not dumb. They're just, they don't need it to be Shakespeare. And it's like, okay, fine enough. They need a little adventure fluff. Cool. Passes the bar, right? But yeah, it's honestly almost as bad as like Book of Boba Fett. I'm that disappointed with it. Like,
you invoked the name.
Yeah, like, you know, it was the
Boba
same
Fett?
sort of thing of like they set up this whole thing for Boba Fett through his flashbacks and then just didn't land the payoff whatsoever. And I feel like they didn't land the payoff with her getting the Darksaber. So I don't know. I don't know. It could have really fucking great character moment of her redefining herself in how she takes the Darksaber, but whatever. We'll see how the last two episodes go.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
Wish it was more upbeat.
No. It gets what it earned. All right. So on that note, that's been Jay and Ryan, the unsatisfied customer. Just playing. I'm just playing. No, I get it. Me too. Like I said, this was a very interesting bag. So, joking, not joking. And we'll see. We got we got 2 more episodes left. So,
I mean, who knows? Hopefully, the last 2 episodes are goddamn slam dunks.
Yeah. Like
that the Pirate was in Rock and Roll, and we get some good character moments and stuff.
All right.
We'll put it behind us.
Sounds good to me. So that was our discussion of Chapter 22, Guns for Hire. All right. Until next time, peace.
And disappointment!
That's good. You got your dignity back. That was
Oh
good.
man.
That was good. Oh boy. Hey, it's Jay. If you enjoyed my conversation with Ryan, please check out our episodes where we talked about The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Spider-Man No Way Home, and the movie Batman. Thanks for listening, and until next time, peace.